Thank you very much, Jordan, for this introduction. First of all, thank you to everyone. Thank you for your expressions of support, your expressions of affection. The system has deployed the nuclear bomb. And if it uses such a powerful weapon against us, it's obviously because we are about to win the elections. There you go. And they are telling themselves that everything they have implemented has not worked. And so maybe they need to shift into high gear. So, things are extremely clear. We will not let it happen. And we will not let it happen, not so much to defend ourselves, only ourselves, but to defend the French people who have the right to vote for whomever they wish, and also to defend the country. Because today the country is starting to waver. It wavers on its principles, it wavers on its values. And all those who constantly talk about the rule of law are generally the first to seek to violate this rule of law. They stole the legislative elections from us through scandalous maneuvers. Let it be very clear, we will not let the French be robbed of the presidential election. And so we are going to... We are going to defend ourselves. We will use all the means at our disposal to allow the French to choose their future leader. And we are going to win. Because truth and justice must prevail. And what has just happened is such a democratic scandal, such a shame, such a stain on our country. Jordan is right to remind us of this. To whom will we be able tomorrow to give the slightest lesson in democracy in the world? To whom? How? Will they be able to defend Mr. Navalny? How? Will they be able to defend the main opponent of Mr. Erdogan, who is currently imprisoned? How can we be outraged by the annulled election and the candidate prevented in Romania, when in our own country, through a provisional execution, once again breaking with what constitutes the very principle of our rule of law, which is the double degree of jurisdiction, meaning the appeal, but not just the appeal, but the appeal. Not just the appeal, the appeal. The effective appeal is the one that prevents being imposed upon in the first instance. A decision whose consequences are irreparable. However, the declared objective of the magistrate, I remind you, I said it last night, is to prevent me from being elected as President of the Republic. It's not me saying it, it's her saying it. She says it with all the candor of those who are convinced they are on the side of good. If Marine Le Pen could run for the presidency benefiting from a suspensive appeal while being condemned in the first instance, a non-final decision, this would constitute a disturbance to public order. The interference of these magistrates in the supreme electoral process, which is the presidential election, that's where the disturbance to public order lies. And the French will not accept it, whether they are RN voters or not. You know, in this case, in matters as serious as this one, all masks fall. You have political opponents who are people committed to democracy. Those people say, listen, I don't share Marine Le Pen's ideas, but honestly, preventing a candidate in the first instance without exhausting all avenues of appeal from running in the presidential election when she's the favorite is not possible. And then you have those who have neither faith nor law. Those who in reality would be delighted if you were attacked in the street, as long as it allows them to avoid having to fight you at the polls. That I don't even want to talk about. Once again, the French will judge the behavior of each side. But Jordan said something very true yesterday. He said, but they shouldn't rejoice too quickly because we have always been the first to be victims, how to say, of the system's dishonesty. Others always follow. Today it's us. But tomorrow, obviously, It will be them. And on that day, they will come crying, because they only cry when it affects them personally. We cry for our country. When it is, once again, all the French who are deprived of a democratic process. And because we have principles, we always apply our principles to our adversaries. We do not demand them only for ourselves. If tomorrow a candidate were prevented from running, we would be the first to act. And surely more, even if it is a political adversary, to come to their defense. We have always done this. We have always defended the presumption of innocence, even when our political adversaries were implicated in multiple cases. We have never stepped up to take advantage of the situation. Never, whether they are from LFI, modem, or LR. We have never done that. We have never joined the pack because we are committed to the presumption of innocence. We have principles. And for many of them, they have no principles. They brandish these principles when they themselves are hindered or embarrassed. But when their adversaries are, they rejoice. Well, we have the honor of not behaving like that. And perhaps that's why, after all, we are the leading party in France. So, my dear friends, you know it, we formally contest the accusations that have been made against us and are the subject of this trial. A trial which, I remind you, was initiated by political opponents. Mr. Schulz, socialist president of the European Parliament, hand in hand with Ms. Taubira, of whom I don't need to remind you that she is an absolutely fierce opponent of our movement. Thank you. Absolutely fierce opponent of our movement. We said, listen, we are going to give the benefit of the doubt to the judges who will judge us, thinking that perhaps they will not judge us poetically. My doubt lasted 2 hours. After 2 hours of the hearing on the first day, I understood that we would not be judged normally. And the entirety, Imami, of the drafting of this judgment is madness. I hope that legal experts will look into the drafting of this judgment, which is madness. Madness because, once again, the law is twisted. Because the presidential election is the stated goal of the judges. After all, the magistrate could have said, I'm enforcing the provisional execution to prevent her from being a candidate in the elections. It was already shameful. But it was more general. But here the magistrate bypasses the municipal elections, bypasses the potential early legislative elections to say, no, I'm enforcing the provisional execution to prevent her from being a candidate and being elected in the presidential election. Because a first instance magistrate do not accept the idea that the French could elect someone I have convicted in the first instance. But who is sovereign in our country, in fact, is the people. You know, these first instance magistrates, it's still a real question. It seems to me that it is the people. And consequently, wanting to twist the voters' arms by saying you risk voting for her. So I'll tell you what, I consider that I allow myself the power to forbid you from doing so. But it's an absolute disgrace. There is not a single country in reality where things happen this way. So this justification is the political justification par excellence. So when I'm told that it's a judicial decision, no, it's a political decision. And it's the magistrate who says it herself. But that's not all. There are 10 reasons to be outraged by this judgment. By the way, I remind you that this judgment, the lawyers did not have it. They received it this morning at 9:30 a.m. But last night, all the journalists had the judgment. Well, it's just an additional element, but still, it's quite a revealing one. I arrived at the 20 years, Mr. Boulot had the judgment. My lawyers did not have it. They received it this morning at 9:30 a.m. But I want to say, once again, it's really a caricature in a way of the abandonment of all principles, all values, all democratic functioning, all the violation of all the rules governing the life of our institutions. But it's not just that, I tell you. There are many others. There is a criminalization in the judgment, in fact, of the rights of the defense. That is to say, if you defend yourself, I will condemn you twice as harshly. But it seems to me that the rights of the defense, the very principle, is to be able to defend oneself. Well, no, you do not have the right to defend yourself. And the mere fact of defending oneself, well, justifies the death sentence. But where does this exist actually? In which country does this type of functioning exist? We were even criticized for having defended the idea that the facts submitted to the court were time barred. No, but excuse me. You will tell us next time, you will let us know the list of what we are allowed to say. Perhaps we should arrive in sackcloth on our knees with a rope around our neck. To make your job easier? Well, no, we are not going to make the job easier. Because we, once again, believe that there is a lot to say about the substance of this case. And that this case has been used in reality exactly for the purpose that was intervened yesterday. The sole objective was that one. So, my dear friends, we will be told we must not contest judicial decisions. Well, in this case, it's not a court decision, which is good. So, as a result, we have the right to criticize it. But what kind of system is it that says you have no right to say anything, you have no right to defend yourself because you are not allowed to contest court decisions? In that case, they should eliminate the appeal and, incidentally, the cassation. Because if we are not allowed to contest a court decision, then let's remove the levels of jurisdiction. Then, after all, let's eliminate the trial since anyway you are forced to plead guilty. Therefore, why bother going through 2 months, as I did, in a courtroom to be able to present arguments that the presiding judge clearly seemed unwilling to hear? This case, I cannot help but put it in resonance with the statement from the Magistrates' Union, which was released last June. Last June, the Magistrates' Union called upon, it is the judges, not the voters, who are responsible, not the citizens, the judges, to prevent the national rally from coming to power. This morning it is explained that the judges are being threatened. I find it scandalous that these judges are being threatened. Let things be very clear. Insults, threats, it's unacceptable. We are all subject to insults and threats. Every person, every political leader, every journalist, every writer, every judge today in our society who takes a stand. Whatever it may be, they are threatened, they are insulted. Do we congratulate ourselves? Not at all. We regret it. But unfortunately, it has become very commonplace. The High Council of the Judiciary this morning, which I heard on the radio, stated it is absolutely scandalous to threaten judges. We share that view. But when the Magistrates' Union says that the national rally must be prevented from coming to power, that is also a threat. That is also a threat. It is a threat against the national rally. It is a threat against the voters of the national rally. It is a threat against the elected officials of the national rally. And this call, once again, is made to the judges and magistrates. What are we supposed to understand from this, and what did it say? The High Council of the Judiciary. Did it rise up against this statement? No. Did it initiate a procedure against the prosecutor, who stated that she could not plead for acquittal because it would hurt her too much? Breaking, thus, with the neutrality that applies also to the public prosecutor's office, not just to the bench judge, it applies to the prosecutor's office as well. No, we haven't heard anything from the High Council of the Judiciary. So this double standard, I say it politely, is obviously perceived. We have understood it, and we will not submit to it. So in a peaceful manner, in a democratic manner, we will defend our rights, but we will also defend the rights of our voters. And the first of these rights, as reminded by the Constitutional Council in a reservation of interpretation a few days ago, is the right to vote freely. It is the foremost right in a democracy, to vote freely. Because if we do not vote freely, well, at that point we are no longer truly in a democracy. If it is the political leaders or judges who decide who can run and for whom the French can vote, then we are no longer in a democracy. We will therefore fight. All legal means will be analysed and used. Mr. Châtel made a statement to say that the court's decision disregarded the decision of the Constitutional Council. This is somewhat problematic for the rule of law nonetheless, because those who cherish the rule of law should know that the decisions of the Constitutional Council apply immediately to all jurisdictions, whether judicial or administrative. This might be a narrow path that we will certainly take. We will, of course, demand that an appeal takes place as soon as possible, because we do not have control over this, of course. It's obvious that when the one holding the lifeline is your political opponent, it's a bit complicated. You wonder, is he going to throw it? When is he going to throw it? Is he not going to throw it too late? We can still afford to ask ourselves the question. And then there might also be a legislative path. Since I heard this morning, Eric Kyoto, outraged, like us, by this decision, which mentioned a potential legislative path, which we will therefore analyse very closely. So, the defence of our voters, the defence of our movement, which, I remind you, has been a victim of a conviction, of a financial burden that affects its future. Because it's not just about eliminating the presidential candidate if we can kill the party at the same time. Well, this way we are sure there are no possibilities. Say the magistrates evidently thought. So we will also fight against this conviction, which seems to us completely contrary. Moreover, to the jurisprudence, I don't dare to defend some arguments for fear of being immediately considered guilty and condemned, perhaps twice as much, but we will still try. We will not let ourselves be intimidated. So, to summarize my point, and we will of course send you all the elements of analysis of this judgment. Those who are analyzing it have their eyes popping out of their heads. Really? And why? Even if they are lawyers, they are on the verge of apoplexy, so much so. It's enormous. But we will give you all those elements. But to conclude, I will tell you that above all, do not let yourselves be intimidated. Do not let yourselves be demoralized. When the decision comes, it is harsh. But it is harsh because it is unjust, and in reality, you know very well this phrase by Montesquieu: there is no crueler tyranny than that which is exercised in the shadow of the laws and under the guise of justice. That is to say, when injustice comes directly from those who are supposed to deliver justice, it is evident that it is even more unbearable than any other injustice. But this indignation, this wound, we must use it. It's an engine. It's a motivation engine. It's an engine of perseverance. If we do not hold firm, if we are not the ones who express this solidity and perseverance, who will do it for us? No one. So, wherever you go, tell the French people that they can count on us. There is no problem. We will be there. We will be there until the end. We will be there until victory.